In this video, we're going to take a look at what is a radian. So in a circle, we normally measure things with degrees. You've probably heard that a circle has 360 degrees total. So if we start right here at the edge of my radius I've drawn for this circle, I would say that starting point could be considered 0 degrees. And then if we make a mark up here that makes a 90-degree angle, then we would say that would be 90 degrees. And then if we go around here to where we have a semicircle, our halfway point, we'd say that is 180 degrees. If we travel 90 more degrees down here to the bottom, we'd say that that's 270 degrees. And then if we travel all the way back around to the starting point, we would say that we would end up having traveled 360 degrees around the circle. So it's a distance measure around a circle. I've gone 90 degrees, 180 degrees at the halfway point, to 270 degrees. I'm 3/4 of the way there. And then all the way to the end is 360 degrees. Alright, so radians are a different way to measure that same distance. So what I've done is taken a piece of string and I've cut it to be the length of the radius of this circle. So I know it's not laying completely flat, but you can tell it's about the length of the radius of this circle. So what I'm going to do is show you how many radians it takes to go the same distance we go in degrees. So if we start at 0 degrees with my radius here, I've got the string that's the length of a radius of my circle. And I start to measure around the edge of the circle. I can take one radius and lay it flat around the edge of the circle and make a tick mark right there. And then continue around the circle. So I'm going to lay it down and make another little tick mark at the end of it over here. And then continue around, make another little tick mark. So let's look at what's happened so far. I went one radius and 2 radii and then a third one, and then there's a little bit left over right there. So what I have done is I have traveled 3.14 radii to get to the halfway point of my circle. So how does 3.14 relate in math? Well, if that doesn't look familiar yet, 3.14 is equal to pi radians. It's a measure of how many radii it takes to get the same distance or travel the same distance in degrees. So at 180 degrees, I have also traveled pi radians to get to that same point. It's just a different way to measure that distance. And so if you notice looking back at the 90-degree mark, I have gone halfway there. So I could easily just say that that's equal to pi over 2 radians at that point. It's halfway to pi. So let's continue around the circle and look at what happens the rest of the way. So if I continue around with my radius length string here and I make another tick mark, continuing around the circle with my radii, and I make another tick mark, and continuing around, make another tick mark. So notice what happens to travel the full distance of an entire circle. I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then there's this leftover amount right here that notice looks about twice the size, or it should look at twice the size of that little amount that was left over on this spot. If I had done things exactly, it would look a little better. And so what that means is I have traveled approximately 6.28 radii to go all the way around the circle. And that is equivalent to 2 pi radians. So what a radian measure is how many radii it takes to travel the same distance we would travel in degrees. So there's 2 ways to measure distance around a circle. And we measure them in degrees, and sometimes we need to measure them in radians when we're doing trigonometry. It's helpful. So we have a conversion factor that's mostly based around this halfway point. Because why use 360 equals 2 pi if you can use smaller numbers and say pi is equal to 180 degrees? And so in order to convert, let's just write this down, to convert degrees to radians, or backwards and go from radians to degrees, we use the fact that 180 degrees is equal to pi radians. So in another video we'll practice how to convert, but this is why we use that conversion factor, and this is what a radian measure means. So hopefully that has been helpful. Thanks for listening.